Welcome to this tutorial where we're covering the basics of CSS. CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheet. It's used to style web pages and it's not a programming language. So every time you visit a website with colors, borders and stuff, it contains CSS. You can add your styles within this style element. This is CSS, body, background color green, which is going to give the body a green color at the background of the body. You can add all your CSS declarations in a file, and then you can just import it into your HTML, include it. We're gonna see how this works too. Tip number 2 is we have the body, and this is the selector, this is the curly brackets, and within here we add our properties and values and the semicolon here. We're gonna do this too. We have classes. A class is defined by a dot, begins with a dot, and then you have the class name. In this case it's BG blue, and then we add the CSS here. So when we apply this class in a div, for example, or an HTML element, these styles are going to be applied. All right, so we can have also multiple classes and we separate them with spaces. You have this class attribute here, which is going to say load these classes here. It's going to search for this class and then it's going to load this. All right. IDs are commonly used selectors to apply styles to specific elements. So IDs and classes are similar, but IDs are used for to style unique elements, whereas classes we can apply the classes in many elements. But if we want to style specific elements with specific styles, then we're going to use the ID, and we're going to see that later on. So for this example, we have an orders wrapper, which is going to have some specific styles. Border 3 pixels, thickness, black solid, and a padding of 5 pixels. Don't worry about that now, we're gonna see them soon, what that means. We have the box model also, where each element has a content in the middle. There it has the padding between the content and the border. All right, so this here. And then you have the border, which is not visible if we don't define that. But there is a border in every HTML element. And then we have the margin, which is like outside or we can see around an element. So between the border and the outside world, or the outside, space. I have created a folder called portfolio, and inside it I have an HTML, index HTML, and an image. The image is gonna be linked into the description. It's from Unsplash. All right, so let's start here. We have our basic HTML structure, and we're gonna add a div with an ID. Let's call it first div. So we give this an ID because it's unique. I want to have specific styles only for this div, and I'm gonna show you what that means. If we go within the head and we start at the style tag, and we say hashtag first div, and we say background color, let's say blue, and let's add some text here. Let's say my portfolio, and we save. We see that this div has a background blue. All right, and it's because we defined our styles, and then when we apply this ID attribute, it says load this ID, find this ID in the styles, and then apply these rules. We say background blue, we say color, we make it white. So this is gonna make the text white. What else we can do? We can change the font size to, let's make it big, 80 pixels. Wow. We want to add some padding 20 pixels. This is gonna add spaces between this my portfolio, this all around until the border. So when I save, you see it got space to the top, right, bottom and left. If we remove it, we save, there is no space, but now there is. You can also comment out like I did with / star, write something here and then close it. So these things are not going to apply it. What I write inside here. Let's remove the comment for now. We don't need it. Let's make it the text uppercase. Text transform uppercase. We save and it becomes uppercase. All right. So my portfolio. Let's make it even more fun. Let's add a list. A list called navigation. Let's call it navigation, and let's add 3 list elements called say home. Sorry, let's add them in an anchor tag, anchor element. Let's leave it empty like this. Copy. So we want to have a home. We want to have, for example, let's make projects and make contact also. A small contact form. We're not gonna do anything large here. All right. So we have our list called. Okay. So now we see we have a class here. Now what is a class? Sorry, we're gonna make this also an ID because the navigation is unique. But what we're gonna do is we can make this list. Let's call it navigation item. All right, so we're gonna give this class. Now we're gonna apply this class everywhere. This list elements. We're gonna add these classes. And now you see what classes are used, how they're used. They're used in multiple elements, whereas ID is for specific. Now this is there's only one navigation, for example, ID. Whereas navigation items we can apply them in many places. And the difference now what we're gonna do here is we're gonna say navigation item. Now if I write something here, it's gonna be applied to all of these. So we can change them with just one class. And we can say, for example, let's make it color lavender. And now this happens, it makes lavender these bullets because these are the anchor tags. So it's just gonna style these ones. So what we can do is we can say, let's leave this for now. Let's take the navigation item again. So navigation ID is going to target this one here, right? So we're going to say list style type none, and it's going to remove these bullets. Okay. Now, what if we want to put this next to each other? We can do a display inline block. We can do an inline block, and then we can what else can we, sorry, I had a wrong item here, navigation item. So now these lists are going to be applied inline, which means they're going to fall into take the space they need, and they're going to fall next to each other. And we also want to center them, but I want to center everything within this navigation element, the parent element. So everything within this element is going to be centered. Okay, we want to center the whole thing, all the things that are inside here, not just the navigation items, but everything in the navigation. All right, so what we're gonna do now is we're gonna give some more styles. We're gonna make this navigation items a bit bigger. The font size, we're gonna add the padding of 20 pixels. So you see they got some space now around it. Space, space, space. Yeah, let's add also some margin. Let's margin left. That's gonna, okay, the difference now is margin left is gonna give it space on the left. So here it's gonna be margin. You see this here? Save. It took some space. If you inspect and you click here on the cursor and you click on the element you want, so this list, you can see the styles applied here. You see the class navigation item. And then let me, so, we want to see, if we scroll down, we see this box model we talked about before. And it is the padding, the border is not visible. And the margin, you see this margin, right? 20 pixels, you see this 20 here. It's this 20 pixels, margin left, 20 pixels. So you can see your styles here too. These are your HTML elements and these are your styles within here. Styles, you see. Awesome. So don't worry about the margins or the paddings. It's gonna take some time, but you will understand pretty quickly how it works. You have to try it yourself. All right, let's add an image. Image source, portfolio. Okay, we want to see how this is called. We're gonna go to portfolio and we're gonna see here, sorry, it's called computer. Computer, and we're gonna save and we loaded our image. Okay, now this image is too big, so what I can do now is say image. This is gonna target all the images. Okay, so this is not a class, neither it is it an ID, so it's gonna target all the class tags. Okay, the image tags, sorry. And let's say height, we want a height of 350 pixels, and there it goes. Now this is if we inspect again, this is an inline element, so it's not gonna take the whole width. Okay, so the difference between an inline element and the block element is, for example, the div is a block element. Let's see here. So this takes the whole width. You see the blue thing? The content takes the whole width, whereas this one takes only what it needs. And the problem here is that if we add, for example, no, sorry. By the way, you can also style like this. So you see we style this here within this style attribute, but do not use this. This is not recommended, only in specific occasions, but you can use that too, yes. But I wouldn't recommend it again. It gets very messy in when you write a lot of code. Image display block, say margin 0 auto, and it's gonna go in the middle because it's gonna apply, it's gonna make it a block, it's gonna give it the whole width, and it's gonna add automatically the same margin to the left and to the right, so it's gonna go to the center. The content goes to the center. Don't worry if you don't understand this for now. Also, it's you're gonna get it soon. All right, let's remove the block element. We don't need it now. Just an example of inline. For spans are also inline elements. So you see inline, if I copy paste it, they're gonna fall next to each other. But if I have three divs that are, for example, block elements, block, and if I copy paste them, they are gonna go to the next row. That's the difference. These go next to each other, but this goes to the next row. It takes the whole width. All right, let's remove them. And let's add a form. Pretty cool, right? A form. What's the ID? My form. Let's do this. And let's add the label for email. So email. Let's make input here, type email. So, and let's give it an ID of email. Now we need a button also, right? Button type submit. All right, so we have a form with a label, an input, and a button. Save, and there we see it. But it looks awful without CSS. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna say my form, which is the ID of the form. You see here, right? The form is a very specific element. We have to give it an ID and we have to style it. Let's say padding 20 pixels and text align center. So we have applied our content in the center. Let's make the button also a bit more beautiful. Let's say background color light blue. Let's give it a padding 20 pixels because we want to add some, make it a bit bigger, right? Space bit around. Look here, this has a border. So the space between submit, which is the content, and the border, I'm gonna save now, look. That's 20 pixels on the top, right, bottom, left. So that's the padding. Font size 10 pixels. Oh, sorry, let's make it 15 pixels. Awesome. What else do we want? We can add also some later spacing. 10 pixels. But let's make it 5. Looks better. Awesome. So we have this, and we want to add also BR tag to make it full here. And now you see there is I want some space between the submit and the email input. So now we're going to use a margin. We see margin top 20 pixels. That's a margin. It's the space between this element and this. So the space around the border of these elements, all right? And now also the button here. This I'm styling again this selector. It's called button, but it's gonna style all the buttons. So if I have another button now, test. It's also these styles are also gonna be applied. So that's why we have to be careful when we style selectors directly. So that's why we need classes. So I'm gonna make this or IDs. My button, sorry, class, my button, and I'm gonna give it the class. Sorry, my button. So gonna save, and these classes are being applied. So now if I create another button, cool. It's not gonna have any styles. All right. Now let's see how we are going to add these styles into another file. All right, so I have this folder here where I have my index.html and the image, and I'm gonna create a new folder called CSS, and inside it I'm going to add a new file called style CSS. Oh, sorry, style CSS. There we go. Yes, make it a CSS file. And now I'm going to add this here. So I'm going to open this file, which is located here. CSS, style CSS. Alright, so what I'm gonna do now is I'm going to go to the index.html, to our index page, and we're gonna copy all the styles that are within this style tag, and we're gonna paste them here, and we're gonna save. So our styles are in the style CSS now, and we're gonna remove this too. And now we're gonna see that we have no styles. So now we're gonna use this link tag, link rel style sheet, to define that this is a style sheet we are loading. And then we're gonna say, we're gonna load the path. So we're gonna say that this file is located in the CSS map, and then it's called style CSS. It's the name of the file. So now if I save, we have all our styles loaded. Much smaller now, right? So it gets, that's how we do the, how we use the CSS. We usually include it in the HTML files, so it doesn't get messy, and we don't want to mix CSS into the HTML file. So this is pretty much it. Thank you and have a nice day. Make sure to like and subscribe, guys. Thank you very much.